What makes you own XRP? That was the main topic of discussion between Mike Novogratz, who is pictured on the left, and Natalie Brunell, who is pictured on the right. Additionally, there is a 5.5-minute video clip that was posted by my fellow XRP YouTuber Crypto Eddie. You know what wasn't mentioned in the 5.5-minute explanation about the purpose of XRP? Anything about XRP's technical features and absolutely nothing regarding its usefulness. Nothing. 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 In addition to being incredibly absurd, this is not very perceptive. Folks, it just really irritates me. It truly irritates me. I'll go into some of the reasons why Mike Novogratz, who has spent most of the last 10 years arguing that XRP was most likely going to fail, had those reasons. He ultimately realized that he was clearly mistaken. It might have been around a year and a half ago, and he finally came to terms with that. He believes that XRP exists only due to the community, but he is certain that it will succeed. That's all. In cryptocurrency, communities are objects. For example, I'll grant you that there is an XRP community, but that's about it. Just because some people purchase it for various reasons, why are we here, in your opinion? Why do you think we're here, really? I'll explain my purpose for being here. I will delve into that. Natalie Brunell is on the right after that. She is among the most poisonous people in the cryptocurrency world. Toxic, poisonous. Doesn't want to learn anything about the XRP ecosystem. She just won't hear it, but she craps all over it because she has feelings for it. It's precisely the reverse of what you would want or anticipate from an adult. She is an adult. Here, it doesn't act like one. She is simply one of the most tribal individuals in the cryptocurrency world. It's funny and foolish to hear these folks who simply do not understand XRP explain why it exists. I'll share my thoughts on this topic with you, and you may share yours with me in the space provided for comments below. I watched the video to find out why you own XRP. I believe that there will be a lot of similarities between our reasons, and utility is one of them. This is so clear. Since Mike Novogratz spends 5.5 minutes discussing the existence of an XRP community in the East, I will actually read you the very beginning of it, before summarizing the remainder. This explains why XRP is in its third largest market gap. That's all. That's his entire argument. Novogratz then posed the following question to Natalie. I have a question for you. Why, in your opinion, does XRP still exist? Because they have a great marketing team and a lot of money, concludes Natalie Brunell. Who are they? Does she mean Ripple? I'm quite sure she's talking about Ripple. The marketing team? There are now millions of people worldwide, along with a marketing crew. We were duped. We have been duped. Oh, fucks. Once more we were duped. Everyone from Ripple. What? Additionally, because they are wealthy? Really? So they used the money they had on hand to defraud us? What exactly are you discussing? Novogratz, however, did not respond in that manner. What do you think they got a lot of money from? He asked simply. Natalie Brunell then made a rather dumb comment that won't surprise any of you. She claims that they are selling both their coin and their initial public offering, or ICO. No, XRP did not have an initial coin offering. Ethereum, which was developed years later, perhaps 3 years after XRP, was the first cryptocurrency initial coin offering, ICO. At the time, Ethereum was the initial coin offering, ICO. Ethereum was different at the time of its initial coin offering. That was so they could afford to create the monster. XRP was just finished when it went live. It was at the beginning, and it was just. The ICO did not exist. How could she hate XRP so much and be unaware of this? Additionally, it is illogical. Only 3 coins, including XRP, have spent their entire existence in the top 10 by market capitalization. They are XRP, ETH, and Bitcoin. There are just those 3 coins in existence out of tens of thousands. Furthermore, she has little knowledge and has no desire to learn. She simply despises it for reasons. She feels things. It makes her feel something. Listen, the XRP army cares as much about their token as the Bitcoin army cares about theirs. Novogratz concludes that the situation is straightforward. Then, Natalie Brunell has the gall to say, it has gotten very tribal. Do you agree, Natalie? Do you believe that you might be overly tribal? And you simply pick a quarrel. You have a history of picking fights with members of XRP. Since you don't want to hear it, you simply go on your little block crusade whenever someone kindly tells you something. If someone says something you'd rather not know, even if it's true, you simply block them. You're just like that. A mature child, as I mentioned. We're essentially dealing with it at the moment. Additionally, it's humorous since she is frequently featured on national television by mainstream media, as if she were a wizard. She has absolutely no idea what she's doing. According to Novogratz, every cryptocurrency is tribal, as if he had a Bitcoin tattoo. He then goes on to describe the existence of an XRP community for the following 4.5 minutes. And see, I don't disagree with Mike Novogratz at all regarding the value of community. That strikes me as a rather important aspect. However, the question of why XRP exists was raised. That ought to be a synopsis. Indeed, a community exists. He adds, yeah, there's no such thing as picking a company. As opposed to cryptocurrency, there aren't any online groups that are, supporters of businesses. For example, he mentioned Oracle in his speech. Indeed, it is true that he says, you don't have an Oracle army or a successful company, but you do have an XRP army. And we do care. This is something that truly matters to us. However, the real reason we are here is not acknowledged. I listened to the entire piece, and I must say that Natalie is really unbearable. And Novogratz, that man is truly a billionaire. He owns and operates Galaxy, a prosperous company that makes cryptocurrency investments. And he does not know whatsoever of XRP because he's currently demonstrating that he knows nothing. That is exactly what he is doing. So I answered this. After Crypto Eddie shared her piece on X, I composed this in response. And I just want to go over this again and offer some more ideas, because once more, it's simply unbearable. Additionally, it's entertaining, but my goodness, it's so pitiful. I agree with Mike Novogratz, I added, and I tagged him in this post. He has 486,000 followers, which is a sizable following. I agree with Mike Novogratz about the impact community has for any cryptocurrency, but how the heck is it possible that he and this highly tribal Nat Brunel person are literally 100% oblivious to XRP utility? I said. They have been in the industry for far too long to be uninformed on this subject. However, they continue to have strong beliefs that seem to be unsupported by any research. If XRP had no usefulness and no appealing technological features, would they really believe that millions of individuals would choose to hold it at random? How come they still don't understand after all these years? It's difficult to think they're doing honorably. And people, at least not right now, I don't believe they are acting in good faith. It appears that Mike Novogratz's speech pattern is the reason he continued talking about this. In my opinion, there is a possibility that he is actually believing what he is saying. However, I find it hard to understand how he could be this successful and hold such a simple opinion about XRP. How could it be that you simply don't understand the purpose of the XRP army? How could you be unaware of any of this? Simply put, I don't think his brain is incapable of absorbing information, which makes it difficult to believe. He's not stupid, mind you. I'm trying to emphasize that it's just hard to accept that somebody could have such an undeveloped frame of view. Despite all these years, he has not given XRP enough thought if this is his true opinion and the breadth of it. I am aware that Natalie is not acting honorably. That's clear. Mike? Sort of a question mark. However, he continues to discuss it. He keeps saying all these things and talking about XRP. It functions as a peer-to-peer cash system. And I stated, here are a few reasons people hold XRP just off the top of my head. XRP does what Bitcoin can't. That would be sufficient justification for holding it. That alone would be sufficient justification for holding it. There's much more to say than that, though. And people, I began with that one for a reason. Because Bitcoin was designed to accomplish just that. Peer-to-peer currency exchange is how it is intended to function. The Bitcoin white paper says that, but it doesn't. It doesn't because it's too expensive and slow. However, once more, it would be sufficient if it merely accomplished what Bitcoin is capable of. Since that is sufficient for Bitcoin, that would be sufficient justification, and there's a lot more, though. I then said, assets can also be tokenized on the XRP ledger. Today, there are T-bills, money market funds, gold, and Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is too slow and costly on layer 1. Therefore, XRP fixes it. Spin the bits is the name of the business. To just a few, it's everything tokenized on the XRP ledger. The $3 trillion in yearly transactions on Hidden Road are being cleared and settled entirely on the XRP blockchain. In other words, the XRP ledger will tokenize all of that. Isn't that a huge issue, people? Hidden Road generates $3 trillion in transactions annually. They're primo brokerage deal, you know. And that is truly useful because XRP is required for tokenization. After all, that is how it is coded. Every transaction that occurs on the XRP ledger requires XRP. Additionally, moving it to Hidden Road makes sense given how quick and inexpensive it is. That's a highly practical use. See, there is such a thing. You can figure it out by typing with your chubby little fingers if you utilize the internet. How come they haven't done that? How are they unaware of that? The news carried it. You know, finding this information isn't that difficult. That will happen soon. And that's just one more thing. Additionally, I wrote, at least 7 publicly traded companies have announced they'll be holding XRP as a Treasury Reserve asset. I believe that 3 or 4 of these companies have also made it public that they will use XRP in internal payment flows with their own corporate treasuries. Thus, that adds even more benefit. And it's true, people. They're more than just that. It is completing the story of Bitcoin as a store of value, or Gold 2.0. That is currently the story of Bitcoin. For that, these businesses are using XRP. Businesses are now using XRP for the same purpose for which Bitcoin is used. XRP performs all of the functions of Bitcoin and more. That is clearly the case. However, it goes beyond that. By incorporating XRP into their internal processes, these businesses are gaining more value from it. In fact, they are doing that. They've disclosed that to the public. Along the way, I have also discussed these stories. This stuff is real. It's also really clear. Additionally, XRP will continue to exist as long as this application is available. That would be foolish. TabJet's use of XRP always sticks out in my mind, I wrote after that. Over a dozen businesses and organizations filed amicus briefs during the SEC v. Ripple lawsuit, highlighting how they're using XRP. If it weren't for the lawsuit, we would have no idea that the corporation was using XRP. Naturally, Ripple also uses XRP as a bridge currency. Yes, and that's one example, TabJet. One thing that really stands out to me is that every amicus brief was filed. The parties were worried that their business would suffer if the SEC v. Ripple lawsuit went wrong, because people were paying them with XRP rather than US dollars. They were doing just that. Additionally, banks usually close on weekends, especially for major transactions, which is why it was so popular. As a result, their business involves chartering private jets, which can cost tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands. As they have said publicly, some of these transactions amount to hundreds of thousands of dollars. I understand that you may chuckle and remark, hey, rich people's problems, but XRP fixes the issue. Therefore, if you want to take a flight over the weekend and are unable to use traditional financing and haven't planned, you may utilize XRP, and many people do. The point is that XRP was the most popular cryptocurrency and one of only a few that TabJet accepted. Why? It is not to be shocked. The reason is that it's extremely quick. Transactions are so quick and inexpensive that they could be considered free. It performs tasks that Bitcoin cannot. Bitcoin is not being used by anyone to book flights with TabJets. People, they're utilizing XRP. This isn't the case though, it's only that some people have it for other reasons. And isn't that army of XRP adorable? They simply have something that they like. Don't worry, none of this matters. These couldn't have been the cause. So I wrote, that's not a comprehensive list of what XRP is used for, but it's a hell of a starter pack. These folks are either propagating narrow-minded views about XRP while being intellectually dishonest or showing a disgusting lack of curiosity. So how could it be anything else? Those of us who own XRP are not merely here for fun. Despite being attacked by the US government for almost 5 years, XRP is one of only 3 coins in existence that have consistently ranked in the top 10 by market capitalization for its whole history. This is no accident. If not for the technological features and usefulness that XRP provides, how could anyone be so stupid as to believe that this community would be present on a large scale? When you take a step back and consider the insanity of it all, it is absolutely astounding. I've been holding XRP since 2017, and I can assure you that if XRP weren't so technologically advanced and practical, I wouldn't have done it. The community wasn't the reason I came here. It's undoubtedly an extra advantage. But I wouldn't have stayed here if it weren't for the utility. Why are you here, people? As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I listed a few of my motivations. Once more, this is not an exhaustive list. There are other explanations, but do any of them apply to you? This isn't just my opinion, is it? Why hasn't Mike Novogratz inquired about the purpose of an XRP army member's presence? For what reason have they been keeping the coin for so long? As I don't see any proof that he does. Because this is what any of us would have said, wouldn't we? Citing practical utility, of which he is blissfully ignorant. It's definitely true, folks. I went on to write, there's also, of course, a stablecoin ecosystem that's beginning to thrive with RLUSD and USDC now tokenized on the XRP ledger. As a result, the total value locked on the XRP ledger has been increasing significantly. Additionally, that will contribute to the long-term sustainability of XRP in the XRP ledger. It simply is. I wrote and then I wrote. I know Novogratz years ago stated that he didn't like XRP and didn't think it would be able to survive because Ripple held too large a concentration of supply. Many people, including myself, saw Ripple's large holding as a huge asset rather than a drawback of the XRP ecosystem. After all this time, my viewpoint has turned out to be accurate. Furthermore, Novogratz's worries regarding Ripple's substantial XRP holdings have turned out to be unfounded. And people, that's how time has proven this. The army of XRP is just growing. XRP continues to gain utility. Novogratz was literally wrong because more people and businesses are adopting it here. There is proof. It's not merely my viewpoint. He was mistaken. XRP has been in existence for more than 13 years. It's not a bad thing. There is absolutely nothing bad about Ripple having this much XRP. He has the option to dislike it. He has a right to that. It's okay. And he doesn't. The rest of us, however, could care less. We simply don't. As the years and decades go by, Ripple's holdings gradually dwindle, I wrote. The ecosystem's circulating supply has increased by a negligible amount. The token economy is doing well. Additionally, take a look at all the positive contributions Ripple has made to the XRP ecosystem. They are obviously a massive net gain, but I don't feel compelled to defend them, and they don't require me or anybody else to. Take a look at RLUSD, which makes XRP more useful because it is essentially necessary for all on-chain transactions. I have already mentioned Hidden Road and XRP as a bridge currency. Therefore, the danger to XRP that Novogratz perceived in Ripple was actually the exact reverse. It's safe to assume that almost all XRP holders agree that Ripple is a net benefit to the XRP ecosystem. And since so many people concur, it essentially means that Ripple won't be an issue for XRP's continued adoption. One of the early winners in the cryptocurrency space is XRP. XRP has now been around for more than 13 years. Do you think they're going to do that, though? If someone doesn't understand it, it's time to examine themselves, be intellectually honest, and just ask, what don't I understand about XRP? How am I consistently this wrong about XRP? On that one, I won't hold my breath. They won't, in my opinion. They won't find this out, in my opinion. If they continue to discuss XRP, however, I will have some ideas and answers. Therefore, this isn't meant to make them reconsider. They simply won't, in my opinion. Natalie will continue to act in a tribal manner. It's repulsive. She will continue to behave in such a manner. Novogratz, like a naive youngster, is blissfully ignorant. How this is possible is beyond me. He may be lying, but it doesn't look like it because of the genuine energy with which he is delivering this. He seems to genuinely believe it, but he hasn't given the reason the community exists any further consideration. Here, he functions as a community, which is why XRP exists. All well, but why are we in this community? Why have we come here? I'm telling you, ask us. For anyone else who might be learning about XRP, this is especially important because I don't hope to influence these people's opinions. And that's truly not my intention when I write things like this. If it did work, that would be a bonus. That's not something I rely on. It's intended for anybody else who is prepared to study it, invest the time, and gain knowledge. And because they are total and utter rubbish, it's fun and sometimes cathartic to just go through everything and bash on their narrow perspective about XRP, almost anything. And that's why people, we can't have nice things. We are unable to have pleasant things because of this.